Hey, folks, we're here in the podcast studio today for a little special chat. I'm Ryan Davis, obviously from Giant Bomb. Joining me today, Brad Shoemaker with a good-looking face, Patrick Klepek, and our special guest today, Mr. Steve Gaynor from the Fullbright Company.
Hello.
How you doing, sir? Get close to that mic.
Oh, no.
Don't be afraid of it.
All right. I'm doing good. I'm glad to be here.
So you came here from all the way from exotic Portland, Oregon.
Yeah, far away,
across the ocean.
Yeah, basically the other side
A place
of the
where they
earth.
have books.
That's where the 90s are.
Exactly.
That's not heard.
You can
That's
still
heard. That's
buy
where the 90s are.
used CDs. It's nuts.
Is the Hawthorne District still weird? I haven't been in Portland in years.
I don't know. It's probably less weird than other parts.
Is the Baghdad still there?
The Baghdad is still there.
Awesome.
How do you know so much about Portland?
My mom lived in Portland for a long time.
Oh.
So I lived in Portland for a while.
All right.
Basically in the mid-90s. So Portlandia was a show made specifically for me. Like
You
everything
appreciate
about
it
that,
on
I'm
a
like,
level.
yes, that is it. That is spot effing on.
As a man of discerning taste, he is familiar with one of them.
Portland's an awesome town, and it's cool that you guys are bringing some development to Portland. It doesn't seem like there's necessarily a huge scene.
I would not say there's a burgeoning game development.
It has not
scene
yet
there.
begun to burgeon.
I don't know.
Someone's got to start it.
Yeah, it's on the way in, let's say. Fingers crossed, right? Yeah, I mean, there's some stuff there, and we've actually been really lucky that pretty much everybody that does anything with games there has kind of like reached out to us, and we've met with them and gotten to know some of the people that are like, the very small community that's there. But
Are there any studios, or is it mostly just individuals and small teams?
there's some, like smaller indie team kind of stuff and some like iOS kind of stuff. And there's one fairly large art house, Liquid Development, does art for tons of games like Rock Band and Mass Effect and just all sorts of big productions. So we, hung out with those guys, and that was cool. But yeah, as far as kind of, gamer-focused stuff, we wanted to bring some of that to Portland because I love that town.
So, Steve, for folks who maybe aren't already intimately familiar with your past works, why don't you introduce yourself for the folks at home, prior to the Fullbright Company?
Yeah, sure. I worked here in San Francisco, actually up in Marin County at 2K Marin for a number of years. I worked on BioShock 2. I was a level designer on that. And then I was the lead designer and the writer of the controversial Nervous Den DLC.
There is no controversy.
No.
I'm just going to just the response
proper-
for these two guys.
The proper DLC one is what I'm saying.
You get Vinny up here. There might be a
The
tussle.
reason he wasn't invited.
There might be words. There might be words. No, I mean, whatever. When you get down to it, when you're at that level of that conversation, it's because
Splitting hairs.
yeah, it's because it is so good.
I believe the record is clear on the best DLC of 2010.
Stamp of approval.
There was an official verdict at
Yes.
some point. But yeah, I was the writer and lead on that, and then I headed out to Boston for a year and worked on BioShock Infinite. That was super great. Like working with those guys was amazing. But yeah,
So you worked with both the 2K Marin team that had to follow up the original BioShock,
Yep.
as well as the guys at Irrational that were making the next BioShock.
yeah.
Obviously, you were longer with the 2K Marin team than you were with the Irrational team.
Irrational, yeah.
But would you say that there were any sort of fundamental differences in approach that you noticed between the two? I mean, I'm not looking for you to like trash talk anyone.
No.
here,
I mean, well, it's an interesting.
But if you want to.
but if you want to, you're free to.
That Levine man, what a taskmaster.
The world is yours, Steve.
It's an interesting question because like the people who founded 2K Marin came from Irrational. Like they worked.
So there is that DNA already.
Yeah, they worked on BioShock and were integral to the first game. And I feel like I felt very at home when I got to Irrational because I had this primer of working with people who had come from there and understanding a lot of the thought process and how they approached making a game like BioShock. And then, working with the guys at Irrational was great because I've been a fan of them since System Shock 2 and, SWAT 4. And I mean, like there were guys that worked on Thief, and that's amazing to be around. So they had this, like, the guys at Irrational have worked on that stuff longer than anybody at Marin had. And so like working with guys who had been in the business of making those kinds of games for like 10, 15 years was, a unique experience. And I'm really grateful I could be around that.
They had already made a lot of the mistakes.
It must be weird though, because you went over to Irrational when BioShock Infinite was already started, and then left before it's finished. Is it weird to go like kind of just like in the middle of this project? What is that experience like? How do you get integrated when you aren't there from the start?
Sure. I mean, yeah, it's like, well, BioShock Infinite. There was still a lot to figure out about the game when I was there. Like, I feel like it was a really important year for that project because a lot of stuff, was like solidifying during that time, and now obviously they're really barreling towards getting it all finished.
So how's it end? What's the twist?
Shut up! I don't want to know.
All
Yeah,
right.
you're spoiling it. Come on. I don't know.
I would say, yeah, he might not actually know. Who knows?
No, I mean, it's the kind of stuff that it's all, it was still being decided
In
when I was there,
flux,
and like
yeah.
anything can happen. As time goes on. A lot of times the ending changes really late because it's a process of discovery, right? So I could not say. But yeah, I came into Infinite knowing, pretty much as anybody looking at it from the outside knew. I'd seen like the trailers they had done and like the E3 2010 demo, and I was really psyched up about it. And then yeah, I was lucky to get to work with Ken a lot, and I was a senior level designer, so I was like helping figure out what was going to happen in the levels and do initial like write-ups and blockouts of that stuff. And I don't know how much of that will survive, but because again, shit changes over time. But leaving before it was finished was primarily just like a personal decision of like my wife and I went out there, and she's from here, she's never lived anywhere but the West Coast, and we were like, all right, we'll give it a year, we'll see if we're happy there. And at the end of the year we were like, all right, we got to get back to the West Coast. And these guys have been doing this shit for so long. They're gonna get it done whether I'm there or not. They're gonna be fine. So I was sorry to leave those guys behind because I love working with them, but glad to be back here to start the Fullbright company.
So you guys have gone full indie now. How big is the team there?
Just
so
three
far?
people.
Yeah.
Just 3 people full time. It's me and my friends Carla and Jonaman, who both worked with me on Minerva's Den at 2K Marin. And we kind of have the design, programming, art bases covered. And then we're going to be working with people that we know externally to give us like environment art, just kind of en masse, because we're going to need a lot of it, and music and sound and all that kind of stuff, the stuff that we don't do in-house. But yeah, the core development team is basically as big as it needs to be. Like our intent has always been to scale the project to something that we can create with help from the outside, as opposed to like something that we would need to really hustle to like hire up and get a huge team together, in town to finish.
But I mean, you say like, I was at Irrational in Boston, and then I came back to Portland and started the Fullbright. Obviously, there's like that's a meteor story there in between of like deciding, instead of going back like, well, I'm going to go and take a job at an established developer or look for something else, saying no, I'm going to strike out on my own, move to Portland, and start putting down roots here. Like, what was the impetus there? So
I mean, I guess it's kind of a 2-part process where it's like, I mean, I did talk to some companies that I would have been excited to work at theoretically, and it was one of those things where there were some opportunities there, but again, it was like, I don't know. I spent the last 6 years, I moved here from Portland, and I moved to Texas while I was here, and then I came back here, and then moved out to Boston, and like my wife and I have kind of been moving our lives around chasing projects for a long time, and we were like, all right, we don't want to move again. And if we don't want to move again, we got to go to the place we actually want to end up. And so it's like, all right, well, we want to end up in Portland. My wife's family is from there, and I love the city. It's my adoptive home. It's, like where we want to be. And so that was the first half of it. But the second half was, how could we make something work if we did that? And so, I thought of Jonaman and Carlo, who I'd worked with and who I thought had the mindset to be interested in this thing. And so before, we kind of pulled the trigger on moving back, I talked to them and was like, if I was back on the West Coast, would you want to do a thing with me? And they were like, yeah. And I was like, if it was in Portland, Oregon.
Yeah,
so they moved up because?
Yep.
Wow.
So you guys are all local. There's no telecommuting or collaboration going on?
I moved up there in January, or I moved back there in January, and they moved up just a couple months ago. So like we did a lot of remote like talking and prototyping about what the project was going to be before they got up there, which was really good because they like came to visit, but we were talking about stuff between the time that we agreed they were going to relocate and they actually like got up there. And so it was kind of like we did all this planning and prototyping before they had relocated. And so by the time that they got on site, we could just go straight into production, which is why, we've been we've only been actually putting stuff on screen for a couple months, and I'm pretty happy with the amount that we can actually show at this.
I was really surprised because you guys came out with your studio announcement, and I was like, all right, that now they're a team, but they're a small team, so maybe we'll see them again in 6 months or a year with some stuff. And then like a week or 2 weeks later, you're like, here's the name of our game, here's what it's about, and here's like some conceptual footage of what it looks like.
Yeah, and it's so that's not even like conceptual or proof of concept footage. Like we have the first half of the game, the space built out, and we have like the critical path that you can actually, like, I have a build in my pocket, like we could put it in a computer right now and play it. It's very low fidelity. There's a lot of it is missing. There's a whole lot of work left to do, but the stuff that we showed in the video was just, this is the, a couple minutes of what we've actually got, as opposed to like, we just built that and dressed it up and faked it all, right? Like, I mean, Yoneman is a really, really talented programmer with a lot of experience. He was at Sony's R&D department for the launch of the PS3, and he, was like one of the first hires at Marin and did a bunch of their tech stuff and then gameplay programming stuff and then AI programming stuff. And he's kind of like, he can cover all the bases, and we're using the Unity engine, which, pleasant surprise, is really easy to work with.
Yeah, I've heard nothing but, when we did the Molly Jam not too long ago, like that was, there were, you had Game Salad for people that don't know anything about programming, that were just wanted to try and make a thing. Yeah. And then you had Unity, which was, it's really easy because if you want to do multi-platform development, it's really easy to spit that out into a bunch of different platforms.
Yeah, and the question there becomes like the needs of a specific platform. Like if you're going to put it on an iPad or something, there's obviously a bunch of stuff that you have to do besides just press the iPad button. Right. But like for us, we're targeting PC. Like we're coming from a place where we really want to make the game we want to be playing, and we're PC gamers. We have experience making these immersive first-person games, but that's also what really energizes us, like exploring a space that draws you in and that you can really kind of dig into and feel like you're inhabiting. And so, from our point of view, it's like, all right, well, practical side, PC is a lot, there are a lot fewer barriers to releasing on PC, and you also have this very keyed-in audience. Like, I never take the PC gaming audience for granted because they actually do seek out stuff that is not just kind of like thrown in their face. Like, I mean, I'm a big fan of like Rock Paper Shotgun. I read them all the time, and there's been that stuff that they did that write-up and some video and stuff recently that was about that DayZ mod for Arma 2.
Yeah, we took a look at that, I think, last week. Yeah.
And like, A, that is pretty amazing, and B, that's super deeply buried. It's like a mod for a hardcore military sim.
Like
that most people have forgotten by now, right? I mean, like the cycle of, at least the attention span for what like its headlines and stuff like that. A game like that's not going to get talked about anymore, and yet, you can bring focus to that with the right audience.
It's been out for years, but, it's like, there's an audience that actually cares enough to say, this is interesting. I'm going to, like, pay attention to this and find out what it's about.
Steve, we've been running footage here. If there's anything that you wanted to specifically call out, I just wasn't sure.
No. That's So the stuff that we were showing is the core experience of the game, which is all about exploration and investigation, right? Like, it's not a combat game. You don't shoot anything. You aren't ever threatened. But when we were thinking about what we could do, it's like, well, we're 3 people making enemies and weapons and all the effects, and making that competitive is like super hard, right? There are people who are going to do that a lot better than us. And if you don't have that stuff that you have to do, you can double down on like the environmental storytelling, allowing the player to really, fully investigate the game world in a way that normally is kind of at arm's length in a lot of games, because there's all this other stuff that it's trying to accomplish, right? And so what we were showing is a couple minutes from early in the game where you arrive and you're trying to get into this house. You're supposed to be there. You think everything is fine. And as you start to investigate and open drawers and pick up things and look for clues, you start to realize that something isn't right. And then the rest of the game is about trying to get to, unlock the whole house and get to where you were supposed to get to from the beginning. That's like the very high level, just like, oh, I'm supposed to get here, and you'll spend the rest of the game doing that. But also discovering what happened here, what happened to the people that are here, like, what is the story of this place?
What is the game? I don't think we've said the name of it yet.
So this game, this mythical game that we're theoretically working on, the game is called Gone Home. It's set in like a modern, locale, a home, basically.
What was the line? You guys used a line, I can't remember what the phrase was, like non-fantastical or something? Or
an unfantastical locale, I think. And Spelltech spell check did tell me that's not a word.
But I mean, you're going to brute force that word through.
Well, it got the point across, and like,
it's
ironically, it was really exciting to me to hear that. It's like, thank God, it's not like some space shooter or like fantasy hack and slash. It's like, like a good story can be told anywhere, and like, you know, honestly, a mundane environment is kind of a breath of fresh air at this point.
There's a few different reasons that we were interested in that. Like, a lot of my favorite levels in games that aren't just, you know, that are about more fantastical stuff take place in very mundane locales. Like, when you're interviewing to be a level designer, usually in like the phone interview or whatever, they'll ask you like, what are your favorite levels from game? You know, what are some of your favorite levels? And I would always name like, there's the abandoned house level from No One Lives Forever 2. That's just a suburban house, and it's just like, go there and find stuff. And the suburbs level from Hitman Blood Money, and you know, the Halloween house from SWAT 4, which Irrational made. And it's like the familiarity of that environment, I think, accomplishes so much just on its own. You know, it's like,
I think that's really like Monolith. You call them out specifically. Like, that is one of their great strengths, is rendering a familiar environment with a believable amount of detail. Like just making that place like, I know this place, I've been to this place. That when you start introducing the weird things, when you start, you know, when you add the twist, it has that much more impact.
Yeah, I think that it's one of those things that the player is so familiar with this kind of environment already that they fill in a lot of the blanks. You know, you don't have to be explicit about every single thing about the environment, because they're like, oh, I know what this place is. And so that kind of primes them to be looking for what's weird and interesting.
Because there's got to be something going on here. This isn't just a house. So you get an opportunity to probably play with the players, because they come in with a certain expectation, and you can subvert those expectations in a way that's not necessarily possible with a fantasy land where you have to have an understanding of everything that's going on.
Yeah, and the other side of it is, the reason we can do that is because we don't have combat, and the reason we don't have combat is because we can't produce combat. But it's like, on the other hand, we're interested in doing a game that's not about shooting stuff or fighting stuff, right? But it's like, when you think about most games, like aside from maybe point-and-click adventures or whatever, it's like you've always got sci-fi, fantasy, or military, pretty much, or supernatural, like some, you know.
Sure.
And it's almost always, I would say, a concession to the fact that there have to be a bunch of enemies, right? It's like, okay, there's a bunch of goblins, or you're an army man, or there's aliens, or, you know, even like something like Alan Wake, it's supernatural, so there are these weird, I don't know, manifestation people or whatever.
So you have to give the player something to do, and enemies is a real easy way to give players something to do when they're traversing from one location to the next.
Right. But then, because of that, you have to have some kind of fantastical, you know, setting to have a reason for there to be all these enemies.
Right.
And so for us, the fact we don't have enemies means we don't have to do anything we don't want to do with the setting. Like, we can say, this is a totally modern, everyday place that you're visiting, and you'll find out what's interesting by digging deeper, but, you know, there don't have to be ghosts or dragons or whatever. And I think that is just an opportunity that a whole lot of games don't have based on the genre requirements, you know, that they're sticking to.
I was hoping we could maybe pull the footage back up, and I'm curious just about the level of kind of interactivity in the environment. I know, like you guys mentioned, a physics system specifically in your the press release you put out.
Yeah,
and, I'm just kind of curious. I mean, you can see, you know, you walk around and you can like open drawers and stuff. I mean, is it literally everything that you see in this environment here is something you can manipulate? Like, could clues be like inside any shoe that you see? Is it literally that kind of comprehensive across the world?
That is the level of detail we're interested in, and that's the level of detail that I think most games don't have the opportunity to deal with.
Right.
So one of the, you know, this isn't any kind of insider information. They talked about this when they were releasing BioShock 1, that they had this mantra that was like, say yes to the player, you know, which is like, if you feel like you should be able to freeze something, then it should actually react in the way you'd expect, kind of thing, right? And we have a very similar thought process here, which is, if you feel like you should be able to open those drawers, you should be able to open them. If you can't, there should be a reason for that, right? It's not just arbitrarily like, oh, these are all the fake drawers, and here's the one
we didn't have time to render these out, so but they're here anyway because we need to fill this room up with stuff.
And you know, like, that is there's a line there that we're gonna have to kind of balance on, which is, you know, we're not literally going to let you, like, if there's some little piece of lint or something, we're not literally going to let you pick up every single possible piece of the world and move it around. We're not going to let you rearrange the furniture, you know, like, but if there is something that, you know, is sitting on a table that you want to say, well, I want to, like, you know, that duck or whatever, like, I want to know what might be under that, we'll let you move it. And if you want to mess around and go take it in the bathroom and drop it in the toilet or something, like, you know, be our guest.
What will that do?
It'll float, I hope.
It might make a splashing noise.
Why is it a Christmas
We've now
duck?
committed them to allowing splashing noises in the game when we drop the duck in the toilet.
Yeah, why is it a Christmas duck?
It's this idea that I feel like everybody's house, like the house you grew up in or whatever, there's probably this semi incongruous stuff where it's like, oh yeah, they put that duck out around Christmas time, and then it was March, and they were like, oh, we got to take this off of the, let's just shove it in this, you know. So it's just the kind of thing where it's like, okay, lazy mom just kind of put the Christmas duck in a cabinet. But you know, there's this, at the beginning you find a note that says like the key is under the duck, right? And it's this idea that you as a player, and I'm not going to talk a huge amount about like the actual fiction or whatever, but the premise is you as a player are familiar with the people that lived here, but you've never actually visited this place. And so it's kind of a concession towards, you know, like the family the family that lived here knows, you know, oh, we hide the extra key under this duck, right? But you're visiting, and so they kind of hastily left you this note to give you this information that they would all naturally have. It's like, you know, hiding a key under a rock or whatever outside.
Place sounds seriously deranged.
Right? It's
the kind of madman puts a key under a duck.
No. But yeah, so, you know, there's going to be this balancing act of like, okay, what do you feel cheated by if you can't interact with it, you know, and what do you feel like, okay, I should have been able to interact with that, and I could, and we have kind of the luxury of being able to say we're going to go to like a very fine level of detail with that. You know, it's a similar thing where it's like in the footage there was like photos you could examine or like envelopes you could examine, and maybe there will be, you know, some books that are just lined up in a bookcase that is like, all right, those are, you know, part of the set dressing because we're not going to fill dozens of books with hundreds of pages of actual text, you know. But we're working to develop a readable language of like, oh, this is the kind of thing you can interact with, and I understand that that is something that's not relevant, and ride the line, you know. So it feels like the world is behaving the way that you expect it to.
Cool.
Yeah, I found that games, some of my favorite games the last couple of years, the games that for one reason or other for you guys, because you don't have the resources, are games that deliberately choose to take out combat, like a Journey or Amnesia: The Dark Descent.
Yeah.
It's really fascinating, like because you remove the power fantasy from the player or the adrenaline rush, or you manipulate the adrenaline in a different way.
Yeah.
And
Amnesia is totally about adrenaline.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Not because you're kicking ass.
Exactly,
you're scared out of your mind.
Yeah, and it's because you can't fight back, or a game like in the horror genre specifically, like a Fatal Frame, where there are enemies, but you fight them with a camera, which is not much of a power fantasy. You know, and I find it really interesting when games, it seems like it's really easy to fall back on combat as a way of filling time, and then when you just say we're not going to do that, that presents an interesting design challenge of, well, what is the player doing, and how can we make sure they're having and enjoying this world, enjoying interacting with this environment, when we can't just fall back on, we'll put some AI in here and they'll shoot them in the face.
Yeah, I feel like there's this kind of there's a small kind of movement, I guess, of game developers who are investigating this exact space, especially in like the first person perspective. And I feel like it almost kind of started with Portal. You know, like Portal was the first big, like, it's a first person game but you don't shoot anything. And now there's a lot of games. There's been Amnesia, which we're huge fans of and is an inspiration, and there are a number of games that are in development or have come out recently, like Dear Esther and
Mirror's Edge.
Mirror's Edge. Well, you know, you
the shitty parts of that game were the part where I played the game where I was, the fact that they gave you the option to not shoot, so I got the trophy or whatever for playing through it without it. But if you played it that way, it was super interesting. But that was a situation where it felt like that was a concession to their expectations, as opposed to
and to the mass market.
Yeah. But I mean,
then you got like Dear Esther is basically like a pure think piece.
Yeah.
So it seems like maybe you guys are sort of like splitting the difference there. It's like there are no assault rifles, but you will do some kind of video gamey stuff.
Yeah, I mean, and there are a number of games like Antichamber that's in development that won some stuff from IGF, and like Jonathan Blow's working on The Witness, and there's kind of all these. There's a number of games that are kind of saying, if you take the shooting out of a first-person shooter, that's interesting, but that's the easy part. And what do you put in instead? You know, it's like, okay, maybe it's story, maybe it's puzzles, maybe it's, you know, in our case, story is going to be very important to our game, but making the world very interactive and trying to simulate it as deeply as possible is the other part of the equation for us, you know, because like I loved Dear Esther, and I wished I could do more with the world in that game, and I feel like there's just some sort of basic level of satisfaction that comes with being able to say, like, you know what, all the stuff on this table, I can just pick it up and pile it up in the corner. You know, like you see people doing that all the time in like Skyrim or Oblivion. You know?
I'm gonna drop 500 cheese wedges down this mountain because I can.
Yeah, or I'm gonna collect every stuffed animal that's in the whole world and put them all on this one chair. You know, like, and I think that giving the people the opportunity to feel like they have this impact on the world, like regardless of whether it really means anything as far as like
just know that you
high
can.
Score or anything, is like, I think that it can be really powerful. So we want to pursue that.
Cool.
I'm curious, you know, a lot of the talk these days is about how you start funding. You know, you're seeing more and more studios and more individuals leave big companies to kind of strike out on their own and do something like this.
Yeah.
A lot of people are funding that through something like Kickstarter.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm curious how you guys went about figuring out how are we going to fund this? Was it something you've been planning for ahead of time, just set aside money? How did you guys figure out, all right, we're striking out on our own. How are we going to make sure that we have the time that we need and that, you know, we're not going to have to run back to a AAA job just to continue funding this thing on the side if we run out of money?
I mean, yeah, we all felt comfortable with the amount of saved money that we have. Like, we're completely self-funded as of now. And, you know, we thought about it and we looked at it and, you know, we did our due diligence on Kickstarter. And, you know, I love Kickstarter. And I think it's given a lot of people a lot of really great opportunities. And some of my best friends have successful Kickstarters.
Right.
And that said, I think that there's a fairly specific kind of project that can be really successful on Kickstarter, and I don't think that we're that, because we're kind of a weird thing, right? like you know, like you have to kind of go out on a limb to be, you know, hyped up about our game before it even exists, because
Sure.
it's not like a known quantity. And the other side of it is just like, as having friends that have done really great Kickstarters, it takes a lot of fucking work to do a successful Kickstarter,
Especially,
to do it right,
I'm sure,
you know?
to follow up on it.
Exactly,
once
because
it is successful.
it's like it's another full-time job, you know, to like come up with what your rewards are going to be and make the video and promote it and like keep doing the updates, and then after that there's all the fulfillment of sending stuff out to people, you know. And it's like that I'm so happy that there is that option for fans, you know, to like say, I'm going to get involved with this upfront and I'm going to get all this special stuff for it. And I've contributed tons of Kickstarters, but from our end, our interest is making the game that we can produce with the resources that we have, and possibly pursuing some other avenues of funding, as opposed to going, you know, crowdsourced, which I think, you know, it has a certain amount of overhead that we want to stay smaller than, I suppose, you know.
And so you guys are just doing this one project. Like, how do you have ambitions, or do you try not to think too far ahead in terms of what you want to do with the Fullbright company?
I mean, we have this project which we're really excited about, and I mean, I've had, you know, like a design blog for a long time, and this is kind of our stab at like making the real version of stuff I've been kind of talking about like in theoretical land for a long time, and that's super exciting. But the higher level goal with this project is to make a sustainable studio, you know, that can, like, we put the project out, we make enough money that we can make another project that, you know, we're in total control of and want to make, and, you know, hopefully expand on what we're able to actually put on screen, and kind of take it to the next step of like, okay, if there was this additional element or this additional element, how would that change the experience, and be able to be something that isn't just, okay, we did this before, let's do another one. But yeah, it's one of these things where it's like, I've thought of it in terms of like starting a fire, you know, like in San Francisco and in Seattle, there are these big, huge bonfires roaring already. There's just huge critical mass of game development. There's not a lot in Portland, and I feel like, you know, I went out into the industry and gathered up enough materials that I'm hoping we can come back to Portland, start a fire that will actually keep burning and be a sustainable source of creativity and
Like that
of
spark.
Us, of us being able to do more, down the road. I don't want it to be a one project company, and we do want to eventually be able to bring more people on, and have like an even more diverse team that's on the ground working on this stuff, full time.
Right.
But yeah, that's down the road after we release this thing and keep our fingers crossed and it's successful. Like we hope, that we'll be able to play off of that.
Do you find it weird having one of the things that I hear a lot from people that end up striking on their own is the PR part? It's one thing to have a marketing arm of a company kind of take care of that for you, but all of a sudden, when you're striking on your own, you're the one that actually has to go and talk to websites, try and get excitement going for the thing that you're trying to create. So what is that process like, and how weird is that when you actually have to kind of go to some of your friends or people at websites and be like, hey, I hope you find this interesting, or not, don't worry about it.
It is. I mean, okay, so did you know it's fucking scary to talk to guys like not in this context, right? Because we're just hanging out, bullshitting, right? And that's awesome. But yeah, when you put together a post and media and compile it into an email and send it out, and you're like, so if you want to post about it, like that, the hang time between sending that out and then finding out if it actually gets picked up is super fucking stressful.
Never mind what they actually wrote about it.
Well, it's like we've been very grateful for the fact that people actually seem interested in what we're doing and have been interested enough to actually post about it and post positively about, like, it seems really intriguing. We want to find out more about this. Like, that's awesome. All of our hand-wringing has been, for naught, basically, because stuff's worked out pretty well so far. And, guys like you we're really grateful that you've taken some of your time out of your day to
it's not, you're going to say precious. It's not precious.
No.
It's technically time, but I'm not even sure we'd call it that.
Well, I mean, not to reduce it too much, but I mean, you guys basically came out and said, hey, we formed Minerva's Den studio over here, and like that's pretty much all the calling card that we needed to hear.
Sure, all right, here's $20.
Honestly.
Yeah, totally. So we are really glad that there are people that we could reach out to and that bit. But that said, it
sounds really scary just to put yourself out there and like you're excited about it, but when you have to put that down into words, you don't want to come across as arrogant. You don't like it's difficult to figure out how to pitch that where you want people to get excited and interested, but not to the point where like, I expect you to write about this. Yeah, like, it's a really weird line to straddle.
And it's also hard not to undersell sometimes, because the thing is, it definitely makes me appreciate more than I've really given real thought to in the past. Just that up to this point, I've always had other talented people doing this shit for me. You know, I've never been personally responsible. Yeah, people whose job it is to know how to really get all the information together and get it out at the right time and schedule it and because a lot of the stuff that I thought about was okay, how do I put this together in a way that is gonna make the journalists' lives easiest, because it's okay, so do you give them a lot of lead time, or do they just want to know when you've put it up, or blah blah, and I got some advice on that, and it's been really good. But there are all these little things you don't think about until you actually have to decide what's going to go in the press release, basically.
Right.
It's fun. Going out on your own, man. It's fun.
It's
like not having the support structure is terrifying.
Yeah.
But then also you're like, man, how come that didn't get done? Oh, because I didn't do it. Well, I better go do that then.
And there's nobody there telling you not to do it.
Yeah, or how am I going to do this? I'm going to do this the way that I want to do it. The unbelievable amount of freedom.
Or I have no idea how to do this. I guess I'm going to learn how to fucking do it, because otherwise I guess we're not sending out a press release. It doesn't take a lot of tries to figure stuff out. But when I sent out the game announcement to folks, I sent it out, and then one of my journalist friends was like, you should really put some screenshots. And I was like, oh, they would like screenshots, wouldn't they? Not just a video. That makes sense. And so I sent a follow-up email and felt like kind of a jackass about it. But it's now we know, right? Right. Journalists want to be able to format their news posts nicely and have visuals up along with the text, not just a link to a video, blah blah blah.
Is that the most daunting overall thing of taking this independent route? Has been just sort of the discovering of the taking on of jobs that are outside of necessarily your area of expertise, or?
Yes, definitely. I would say so.
You got to wear a lot of hats now.
Yeah, for sure. And I've been lucky to have been responsible for all of that stuff on the dev side before. Like, you know, on Minerva, I was the writer and I was the level designer for the first level of the game, and I was kind of overseeing what other people were working on and like collaborating with the artists on the art style, like the specific art style for that area. Obviously, BioShock has its own established art style. But so as far as like stuff I'm doing in the editor or doing with the development team, it's like, all right, I've done this stuff before and I've done it all at the same time before, and like that's all right. And it's all the other stuff outside of that, like, so are we going to buy ourselves health insurance? Like, what is what do taxes
Who do I
mean?
even call to do that?
Yeah, like we you know, we got a tax number or whatever, and that kind of stuff is really interesting and also hard to
It's not like there's a checklist out there. It's like, all right, you've gone indie, here are all the things that you need to take care of. It's kind of, as you run into them, you realize, oh, this is something we have to do, so let's go figure out how we do that.
And on some level, like in a more general sense, there is stuff for like, you're starting a small business, you know, incorporate, get a tax number, blah blah blah. But when it comes to game stuff, there's specifics that you don't necessarily have your checklist for. But again, you know, super lucky to be friends with journalists who could tell me like, here's how you're fucking up your press release, you know, and stuff like that. Because
here's
otherwise,
the easiest way where people will write about your thing. And screenshots is a thing that you would think up front, like, oh no, a trailer. Everyone likes to embed trailers, but you need static shots too.
And so, you know, that's great to have people there, because otherwise it would just be like you're sending up the fucked up version and you have no idea until you like don't get coverage or whatever, you know?
So your pro tip for burgeoning indie developers right now is screenshots.
Take screenshots. Take screenshots. Don't forget about the screenshots.
Forget scope and scale, all this. No, screenshots, dudes.
I've heard that. I've heard that part is super stressful though. Like, what do you constitute an interesting screenshot when you have to be the one that actually chooses? Like, we're going to snap this, and then we're going to send that out to represent our game. I've heard that part could be really tough.
I have at least done that before. Like, I took a bunch of the promo screens for Minerva and stuff. And it's for me, it's mostly about figuring out what do I want to communicate is interesting about this game. You know, so like I had
you don't have combat in this one, so like it's easy to imagine, you know, in BioShock, like what you could capture to convey that world.
Yeah, you'd have machine guns and like the player using powers and like security bots and all that kind of stuff, right? But in our case, so the thing that overlaps there is the stuff I just described as the verbs, right? It's the player verbs. It's the stuff that happens that you can do in the game, right? And so for our screens, I took at least one just nice kind of atmospheric environment shot, and then everything else in there was like the player hovering over something that had some text. It was like read note or examine photo, or it was like a close up of this, you know, a pamphlet that you could read, and people could kind of see like, oh, I'll be able to, you know, examine things or like check out all the little details you know, in something like this. Yeah,
magic.
Because what we wanted to do is not say, you know, this wasn't like a huge like, you know, trailer splash, you know, like launch trailer.
Yeah, it's just 2 minutes excerpt from the game that kind of represents in a nutshell what you'll be doing.
And so our message was not like, get ready to buy it. It was like, here's what's interesting about it. Like, if you pay attention, we want you to feel intrigued by the possibilities, you know. So that had to go into the screens. So that was kind of the guiding principle for that.
I've got one more question about the game, if you'll indulge me.
Go for it.
So in Minerva,
I love talking about it.
So in Minerva, you guys had there were a number of broad themes in there. You know, you had like loss and identity, and it's kind of like it's like racism in this stratified society, and like a lot of interesting stuff going on. Are there any specific themes that you are thinking about tackling in this game that you'd want to talk about?
I don't want to get too specific, because there's some stuff that I could say that would probably be a little spoiler. Like, there's some stuff I want the player to discover as they're digging into it. But I don't think I mentioned this to you guys, but somebody else that was asking me about the game said, what are your major influences? And it was funny because they asked me out of the blue, and I was like, God, I know the answer to this question, and I only have one answer, and it's fucking hilarious. It sounds ridiculous, but I'm just gonna. So our two biggest influences are System Shock and My So-Called Life.
All right. Again, here are my $20.
And so if that points to any thematic issues of like adolescence and, like you said, identity and self-discovery and the relationships between generations in a family, that is a lot of the stuff that is going to be the frame on which the specifics of the narrative are.
Sounds like this is grounded enough in kind of like just the basic human experience that, like, do you think people outside of the mid-20s to 30s male internet demographic could be into this kind of thing? Like, could you see multiple generations of people, like older people, getting into this?
Well, okay, so in theory, maybe. Like, like the biggest stumbling block for that is always fucking mouse look and WASD or using two thumbsticks or whatever, right? Like navigating something like this is nowhere as easy as navigating like Myst, right? Like that went huge because it's just like click left, click right, I think that beyond that, like, so yeah, the real time kind of fully player driven viewpoint is one barrier to like really broad appeal, and also it's it's a fairly complex kind of set of, I don't know, just controlling the camera is one thing, but then like getting in the mindset of navigating a three-dimensional space and being like, oh, I can only get to this area right now, but oh, I found this key, so now I can get to this other area, and like tying all that stuff together. I think it is kind of based on some just sort of unconscious skills you build by having a lot of exposure to games. That said, the stuff that's good about it is it isn't a Twitch game, right? Like I think the other side of games that make a lot of them harder to grasp for people that don't have a lot of familiarity is just I'm trying to play this thing and dudes are shooting at me and I die and I'm scared and I don't know, I'm stressed out and I don't want to play this anymore. And our game, Gone Home would be much more of like, if you can grasp how to control it, it's very much just like take it at your own pace, like explore as deeply as you want or not. And if you're interested, there isn't anything else except the actual inputs, I think, that are really like pushing you away from the experience as far as that goes. It's the kind of game that I know that a lot of people do play games like in, pairs or like a group situation where it's like, okay, I'll play this and my friend or my wife or my mom or my, whatever, other person who's maybe not a gamer, will kind of watch over my shoulder and we'll play it together. And I think Gone Home is a game that could be appealing to a lot of people in that situation for sure. Something that we were interested to see is, and I mean, I think this is just due to the, I'm not sure what it's due to, but we were looking at like our stats on YouTube or whatever, and they have like what people have put in their ages as, and our the highest percentage of age groups that were looking at our stuff was like 25 to 34 and 35 to 45, and then like 18 to 25 was under that. And I'm like, all right, it's cool that this is like not especially deep information, but the implication being that there's this certain level of I don't know, maybe mature or experienced gamer that is seeking this kind of stuff out, which is great because I mean I'm in that age group, right? I'm 30 and our team is kind of at this age where we've played a lot of games and we want to play something that we'd never played before.
There's plenty of the other stuff. There's room for something else.
Yeah, and I feel like we are definitely on the path to creating a game that isn't exactly like anything that you've played before, which I'm excited about.
Well, Patrick, any more questions for Steve
I
here?
I think we've covered. I'm anxious to learn more. It sounds like you guys are going to be updating, maybe not as heavy as the original announcements, but at least giving some updates about the game as it goes forward.
Yeah,
right?
I mean that was basically our only. And announcing the company and the game were really a means to an end, because what we wanted to be able to do is just talk openly about what we're working on and say, here's this, that, or the other thing about how we're developing the game, and put it on the blog and let people in on the process of like, here was a programming challenge that Yoneman encountered in Unity and how it was fixed, or like, here's something about our setting, like little things that won't give away the full experience, but that we can just talk about what we're up to. So yeah, we did kind of like our two big announcements of company, game, and now we're just going to kind of filter information out as we go, and people can follow it and see what the more the smaller bits of the game are that are going in.
When you're ready to talk about your pre-order incentives, give us a call.
All right.
Do you have a target date, or is it just I don't know when we finish?
This is your big PR moment, Steve. I want you to look directly into the camera. And all of your details that you have, that you want, the core information that you need people to know right now. Here it is. Time to shine, baby.
Maybe next year.
All right. I will accept that answer.
Is there a website people can go to see the progress?
Yes. Visit www.thefullbrightcompany.com and also my
Now,
Twitter.
that www, do I need that? Is it going to work without that?
The internet will not understand otherwise.
It won't know where to... So, okay.
Or it might. Just try it.
That's part of the mystery.
Do you have a Gopher site that I can go to?
If you ask Jeeves, he'll tell you all about it.
Fantastic. All right. Steve Gaynor from the Fullbright Company.
Thank you very much, guys. It was great talking with you.
Thanks for coming
thank you.
and hanging out and chatting with us about your game.
For sure.
Gone Home, coming
someday.
Someday.
We'll talk more about it soon. Looking forward to it.
Fantastic.